What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another edition of the Locks DFS NBA breakdown video. I am your host, Christian Hardy. I am at ByHardy on Twitter. You can find me right here where I tweet about NBA, NFL, all sorts of sports stuff, and sweats, that sort of thing. You can follow me there, but also I am from LocksDFS.com. We are a provider of DFS content for NBA, NFL, and college football. And we are going to be going through this 5-game slate for NBA today. And a very, very interesting 5-game slate. Lots of options all over the place at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom. So settle in for a pretty solid video here. I've got a lot to talk about and get to. Before we do that, I want to remind you guys, of course, we just gave away our free season pass that we do every single week on this channel. So be sure to subscribe and comment on this video. You can comment with your favorite, you know what, you should comment with your favorite stud play today, because there are so many options at the top here. I'm not even going to really talk about Luka Doncic in this video, but like Giannis, Luka, Trey, Kyrie, if he's going to play, is sort of in play at this price. Jokic, Drew Holiday, like all these guys up top are in play. So leave your favorite stud in the comments, and you have a chance to win that free season pass. We give that pass away on the Thursday night showdown video. And with that said, I think we are ready to get into the slate. So I'm going to start with some injury news. We obviously have a decent amount at this point. I'm getting this video out a little bit late. So we know that Kawhi Leonard is going to rest, and we know that Paul George will make his Clippers debut as expected today. We don't have a clear idea of Paul George's minutes, but I think we can expect something between 28 and 30 in this first game, with potential upside for more. But I think safely we can project him for about 28 to 30 here. And we also know that for the Clippers, Patrick Beverley is going to sit out with a sore left calf, and Landry Shamet looks pretty unlikely to play. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. Okay. We know that for the Atlanta Hawks versus the Suns, that Cam Reddish is going to start and Kevin Huerter will be out. We know that Chris Middleton is out with his quad injury. He will be out for a few weeks. People might not recognize that because actually when I looked over this slate for the first time last night, I did not recognize that. I had totally forgotten about that on the first look at the slate, because they've already priced him way down here to the 3K range. And then we also have Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball out for New Orleans, with Brandon Ingram being a game-time decision. So that's going to open up some minutes there. And then Kyrie Irving was questionable, but he's been upgraded to probable, so he is going to play. And that's pretty much the full extent of the injury. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, a lot to talk about in this game. In terms of going through totals, you can't see these bottom two, but the two most targetable games on the slate are pretty clear. Going to be the Bulls and the Bucks, both top 10 teams in pace. And then you're going to have the Pelicans and, sorry, I got the hiccups, and the Clippers at 234.5 total, although it's dipped a little bit. There is this Hawks and Suns game, which is definitely interesting as well, especially for a guy like Trae Young. Like I said at the top of the video, I mean, he's definitely in play as a stud on this slate. Okay, let's go ahead and go through the Clippers game first, because they are in such a good spot against the Pelicans. Pelicans bottom 3 in defensive efficiency and top 3 in pace. They have a 119 team total. They got Paul George returning. This should be a pretty smash spot for them. So last time we saw Kawhi sit out on the front half of a back-to-back, we saw Lou Williams get 39 minutes. He put up 27 shots in a pace-up game against Milwaukee. This is actually a very similar spot to that. We do see that Lou Williams is priced up to 7.7K on DraftKings. But, I mean, he's going to get so many opportunities to shoot the ball, even with Paul George in the lineup. We know that also Patrick Beverley is out, which means that that's going to open up. We know that Lou Williams often operates as a one off the bench, so that's going to really open up more 1 minutes for Lou. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start there as well. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do there, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see that happen. We also know that it should also benefit. So yeah, I think that Lou is an awesome play in all formats, cash, GPPs, you name it. He's an awesome play. He should definitely at 1.26 fantasy points per minute without Kawhi this year. You should be getting at least 32 minutes. I don't see how he doesn't get to value here. He'd have to just be missing his shot dramatically. Also, that Patrick Beverley news is going to open up more minutes for Rodney McGruder, who is a similar play to like Ben McLemore yesterday, where it's like it's really gross. I'm not sure if it's going to be necessary on the slate yet. I haven't built a ton, to be honest with you. But Rodney McGruder, shooting guard, small forward, he should get a little bit of the backup 1 minutes, I'm assuming they're not going to want to start him. Shamet is questionable, so Shamet's in, then McGruder is pretty much out of play for me. But we saw McGruder play 20 minutes yesterday. So, with Shamet out, he's a significant part of the rotation already, and then we see Beverly now ruled out for this game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get to like 30 minutes. Of course, like I said, like Macklemore, it's a pretty thin play. But if we do see Magruder get a little bit more on ball in this game as a backup one, I have a little bit more interest there, especially because of the pace up and because he'll be playing a little bit less next to Lou Will, who takes a ton of shots and gets a ton of the ball handling duties when they're on the floor together. Lastly, for the Clippers is going to be JaMychal Green, who had a really, really nice game yesterday. Addy almost played him in cash, but didn't end up playing him. But he ended up coming through big time yesterday with 14 rebounds, 14 points over 32 minutes. 32 minutes is definitely the most notable part of that. Even with Kawhi, he got 32 minutes yesterday, which is pretty massive. There's definitely a potential for him to start this game. Pretty much second half yesterday, they just pretty much phased out Patrick Patterson. I'm not sure if that's going to continue here. I think Patterson's going to be a part of the rotation. I'm not sure if he's going to start with Paul George back. Like I said, we're just kind of waiting for this Clippers lineup with Paul George out. This game starts at 8, where the rest of the games are going to start. So we should know before lock, but especially if Green's starting, he's in play. Even if he's not starting, he's going to have to play minutes with no Kawhi out there. And assuming that Paul George isn't ready to be putting on like 35 minutes or whatever. So yeah, I like Green a lot. I like him to get probably 29 minutes in this game or so, and he's at almost a fantasy point per minute without Kawhi this year. Obviously, like I said, they are getting George back, so it might come down a bit. But even at this price, very, very solid. Expecting at least 28 minutes for him around there with no Kawhi. To run this game back, there are definitely some options because of the injury news. Obviously, the Brandon Ingram news is big, mostly because, well, obviously it's going to change the starting lineup, but also it would open up a lot more shots for Drew Holiday. It would put, as of now, if Ingram was in, Holiday really isn't on the radar. I actually look more to Ingram in that case, 700 less. But if we see Ingram out, we just saw Drew the other day shoot 21 times, was a triple-double threat without Ingram, so he's obviously a really good spot for that as well. I mean, that's definitely worth noting, but Drew's going to be in play absolutely here if Ingram is out. But more notably, we have Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball are out. That is going to give a ton of minutes to JJ Redick. We saw him play 37 minutes last game. He started last game. Obviously a good spot once again against Houston for Redick. I mean, they needed to put up points, they needed shots, they needed to shoot three-pointers to match Houston. Totally makes sense that he had a good game. But at the same time, you see 37 minutes. I think that he'll be around the same here, maybe a little bit less, maybe 35 or so. And man, he shot even in the game before where he didn't play 37 minutes. He put up 13 shots in 29 minutes, put up 36.75 fantasy points. I was really, really surprised to see this price on DraftKings. It just doesn't make sense why they would drop him after that Houston game. We knew the Lonzo Ball was still going to be out. We know that Josh Hart is out. There are just so many wing minutes right now for the Pelicans because they've got to move guys around. And so yeah, I mean, Redick is probably my favorite value play on DraftKings today as of now. Unless, it's potentially that if Green started, I could see him more, but I don't see that really changing because we know that Hart and Ball are already out. And Ingram would definitely take a little bite out of Redick's usage, but not a big one. I really like Redick a lot today in this game. And the Clippers are middling in pace. I believe they're 15th, so I'm not really too concerned about this being. It is a tougher matchup, but I'm not too concerned about this being like uber slow in this game. Obviously, if Kendrick Williams starts, you can definitely look at him. He's a 0.8 fantasy point per minute producer. Last game, he got the start, played 38 minutes. He's definitely going to be in play if he starts again. Mentioned Drew Holiday, but also I really do like Derek Favors at this 5.5K price tag. We'll be interested to see how he fits into this matchup, but we've seen his price come up after he's played 29 minutes in back-to-back games. We could pretty much slot him in for 29 to 31 minutes, I'd say. I'm pretty much expecting him to stay at that allotment of minutes right now because of the way he's playing. He's just such a solid fantasy point per minute producer. So if you're giving him those many minutes and he's producing around 1.1 to 1.2 fantasy points per minute, this price is just too low in terms of a median projection. So I really, really like him if you're trying to run back this Clippers team. I definitely think I'll be having at least one piece of New Orleans. Obviously, I mentioned Redick, but could end up. I think I'll have a lot of this game. I also think I will have a lot of the Chicago-Milwaukee game, which we will be talking about next. Obviously, Giannis at the top here, and he is a fantastic play. He's averaging an absurd 14.3 rebounds per game this year, now gets to face the worst rebounding team in the league. Unless this game gets ugly early, and even if this game does get ugly early, I mean, we saw that happen a few games ago against Minnesota. 27 minutes, put up 61.75 fantasy points, put up 15 rebounds in that time, 34 points. Just absurd. And not to mention the fact that Chris Middleton is out, and we do have a small sample on this year. Obviously, he hasn't played a ton without Chris Middleton. He's only played 114 minutes, But in that time, Giannis has jumped to about a 1.75 fantasy point per minute. I don't know for sure where he's at. I think he's around there, though. I'm pretty sure he's around there. He's jumped up to a 2.14 fantasy point per minute producer without Chris Middleton. Obviously, I don't think that's probably going to be sustainable over like a long span without Middleton. But it's definitely extremely interesting that Giannis is that dominant without Middleton. I mean, if you're putting him at 2.14 fantasy points per minute, he's playing 36 minutes. It's like 74 DraftKings points or something like that. It might even be higher than that. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty smash spot for him. Chicago's running at a top 10 pace. That's also great for him. Great rebounding matchup. I think you should probably be having Giannis in your cash games and then just go from there. Find the value to get him in. Find the value to get maybe one more, maybe possibly 2 more studs in your lineup. It's going to be tough to do that, but definitely could potentially do it. I mean, there's just he's getting to 5x here, even if it's a blowout. Really love him. Also wanted to mention on Milwaukee, Eric Bledsoe. His price has come up, so I think that maybe he will come in a little bit low owned, but I really, really like Eric Bledsoe. I think a lot of projections are not factoring in the fact that, well, we have Chris Middleton out for one, but a lot of projections have not adjusted Bledsoe for not having Brogdon on the floor. So Bledsoe is actually averaging 1.4 fantasy points per minute this year so far, which is a pretty solid sample size. I mean, he's played almost every game this year. Dating back to last year, that number does dip to 119 minutes. Sorry. I actually want to rewind this a little bit. That 1.4 points per minute is without Middleton this year. He's closer to about I think he's about 1.15 with Middleton on the floor this year. But without Middleton, 1.4 fantasy points per minute, which actually does make sense to me. Although it was lower last year without Middleton. Like I said, pretty much all of his minutes last year without Middleton came with Brogdon. Now he's playing next to guys Pat Connaughton, Wes Matthews. It's just not the same. You know, like Bledsoe is getting a higher usage rate by about 3%. He's getting a higher assist rate. He's getting a higher rebound rate. That's all, I think, due to the fact that he's not playing next to Brogdon. So even at this price, I really, really like Bledsoe today. Like I said, that fantasy point per minute without Middleton this year is very solid. So I think he's a really, really safe play. I think he can definitely get you to 40 pretty easily here. Brook Lopez also may get a slight usage bump, but his upside is usually a little bit capped because of his lack of, where is he? Here he is. Because of his lack of minutes, but I do like the price on him, and I definitely see a path for him to have a ton of upside in this game. I would love to see him play this 32 minutes, and that really gives him more of an upside, like we saw in this Clippers game, puts up 44. I mean, that you're going to need him to win a GPP if he puts up 44 probably. So yeah, I mean, I definitely want to get a little bit of him in my GPPs in terms of my Milwaukee exposure. And then to run back this game, which like I said, these 2 games are going to be most of my roster. Your best 2 options are going to be the 2 big men in Wendell Carter Jr. and Lauri Markkanen. Both are mid-range cash options. Both are good in GPPs as well. Markkanen is dealing with the oblique strain. He missed Monday's practice, but he didn't show up on the injury report. He's been going through non-contact in practice. People are kind of assuming that that's kind of starting or has been affecting his shot so far this year. I mean, he's shooting. I guess that's not the full season. There it is. He's only shooting 38% on the year. It's definitely a significant dip from last year. He's averaging about 4 points per game less than last year. I'm a little bit concerned about that oblique strain in his shooting, but I definitely think at this price, he has so much upside that I'm not sure if I'll have him in cash. I think Carter's a little bit safer for cash, but man, I love him for GPPs, especially considering, just depending on the ownership there. Could be someone I definitely end up over on, especially because at 6K, he's probably going to fit into lineups pretty easily. Wendell Carter Jr. I think will be very popular today. First of all, he's 400 less than Markkanen. He's in a very, very great fantasy game, conducive to fantasy points. And he played 35 minutes last game. Realistically, I think we're going to usually see him around 31 minutes per game, as I think Markkanen should get a little bit more fourth quarter run and maybe dip down Carter a bit, as Carter played like from 8-minute mark in the third quarter pretty much to the end of the game until like the last like minute of garbage time run. But regardless, even if Carter does come down to like 31, 32 fantasy points or minutes, which we know that now that he has an upside of 35, 36 minutes potentially, which is great. You love to see that. But I'm really projecting for like 32 in this game. But regardless, he's a fantasy point per minute producer, and the price is 5.6K. I think it's a very, very solid play. You're pretty much getting him close to the cheapest price he's been all year in a very, very good matchup. Obviously, Milwaukee isn't the best rebounding matchup with Giannis grabbing so many rebounds, especially on the defensive end. Not a lot of second chance points
But still a pace-up game. Plenty of shots for Carter to grab. Really, really like him today. And we've seen him in what, 5 of his last 6 games grab double-doubles. So really like that at the price. I mean, you can't really beat that. A double-double at 5.6K. That's pretty great. Pretty much that just about wraps up the video, but I would be remiss not to mention the two other studs on this slate that obviously are in very good spots that we pretty much regularly talk about in this video every single day when they are on the slate, and that is Trae Young and Nikola Yo Kitch. To me, Trae Young is just still way too cheap. He is doing everything for this terrible Atlanta team right now with John Collins out. 1.51 fantasy points per minute, 26% usage, and a 43% assist rate with no Collins on the floor. He's a double-double threat every game, a potential triple-double threat if he can get rebounds going his way. We saw 8 in this game. I mean, it's possible with him on the floor so much that he can get up to 10 there. And he's shooting the ball a ton. I mean, just love that. He's third in the NBA in usage this year, and he has 3 straight games, over 60 DraftKings points. I actually think it's very likely this is your last chance to play him at under 10K on DraftKings. And I think he's definitely. I really think it's extremely likely he gets to 60 points here again against a Phoenix Suns team that runs top 10 in pace. Also interesting for Atlanta, I'll mention some up here is DeAndre Bembry. He is probable, that questionable tag. Yeah, he's sick. He's probable, so obviously something to watch there. But man, I mean, we have news that Kevin Huerter is going to sit out this game, and I think we'll see Bembry play at least 34 minutes. We know that they love to keep Bembry on the floor for his defense. And he can do a lot of different things on the floor. He can play the wing. He can be on ball. He can do all sorts of different things. So I love to see those kind of minutes from a guy that's this cheap. He definitely makes into the cash play. Obviously, another interesting cheap play for Atlanta is Cam Reddish, who's going to start. But man, he's been a terrible fantasy point per minute producer, around 0.6 fantasy points per minute. His shot hasn't been too good this year. He's shooting 25% from the field. It's really just a GBP fire for me on Reddish. And then lastly, this other stud that we've talked about, I think in like the last 4 games that he's played on this video, is Nikola Yo Kitch. He did get there against Atlanta. He didn't have the type of game that you really want to see from Yo Kitch. He didn't do as much scoring as maybe you'd want to see, but still put up 19 shots. He's put up averaging over 20 shots in each of his last 3 games. Dude's going to do his thing on offense, and you hope that usually he can do more rebounding as well. He's only averaging 9 rebounds per game this year, which is definitely a decrease from last year, but not too concerned about it, especially in a matchup with DeAndre Jordan and Jarrett Allen. I think he's going to have his way against them down low. 8.6K is just way, way too cheap here. Nets have run at the 5th highest pace this year. The Nuggets have a very, very solid 115 team total, which is something that you don't see a lot. Sorry, they're off the screen, so no point in going back there. 115 team total from Denver, which is something from a team that runs so far down in pace, you're not going to see a lot. So this is probably one of the best spots that you're going to get for a Denver team. Unless he gets into foul trouble or something, I think the floor on Jokic is pretty much his value, which is about 43 points. It's pretty much, I think his floor is going to come in around there. And like I said, unless he gets into foul trouble early, or grabs 2 quick fouls, in the second quarter or something, we're going to see that floor be around 40, 41, 42 points, somewhere in there. And we've seen games where he can put up 57, 60. I'm sure last year, multiple games where he put up 70 even. So we know the upside from Jokic that he people want to talk about he's fat or whatever. Dude, I mean, he's putting up 20 shots a game, and his rebounding numbers are due to regress. So really, really like Jokic today. It's a tough decision in cash games where you want to go with the second stud if you can only get one other one, or whether you want to play Lou Williams. That's also a question. I think he's a very, very viable cash play today, and that's not even talking about Montrezl Harrell either. I think he's viable with no Kawhi as well. So in this matchup, like, all these guys make a lot of sense. So there'll be lots more on the lock sheet. I know this was a little bit of a long video probably that you guys are used to, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I helped you guys out and, take down some stuff tonight. Good luck. I hope you guys have plenty of success on tonight's slate, and we will see you guys back here next time. Peace.